Welcome, folks. I am Big Will, and I'm your guide on this adventure today. We're going to talk about the mining protest, what's happening, where it's happening, and what you should do about it. All right, let's start with a brief overview on what's going on. There is a mining contract held by a Canadian company that was just renewed by the president of Panama. The company has been in place for a number of years, removing copper, and they've been paying Panama revenue from this mine on a yearly basis. Looking at the numbers, it really wasn't that much. And the president just renegotiated a contract that would sizably increase the annual revenue. So there's a couple of things to keep in mind about this contract, because right now I know it sounds like a good deal, but it gives control over a large amount of land, the size of Miami, to the Canadian government. They've established rules about no-fly zones and not allowing Panamanian citizens to access the area unless they're part of the mining operation and much more. So there are some legitimate concerns there. Another thing to keep in mind is that Panama does not see itself as a mining country. They love their environment. This country is full of biodiversity, it's very green. You may see bits and pieces of trash here and there because they do have a few problems sometimes with their infrastructure picking up the garbage, but the overall feeling and intent of the Panamanian people is to be as conservative with their environment as possible. And this is an open air strip mine, so that's a problem. It appears that the main thing that has been contributing to the ill will of the Panamanian people, besides the environmental effects, is the distrust of the process. It does appear that the president just pushed through this contract and didn't go through the due process that is required here. I'm not going to go into details because most of us in North America don't even pay attention to our electoral process. So just understand that there was step 1, 2, 3, 4, and it appears he went from step 1 to step 4 pretty quickly without the involvement of the Panamanian people, and it may be unconstitutional. So that is something that their Supreme Court is actually taking a look at right now. And then some of the actions that he's taken since this has started also lead to more distrust. So more of that later. The last aspect of this that we should keep in mind is that the Panamanian people are very concerned about loss of control of their national resources, and with good reason. Don't forget that the United States of America control the Panama Canal, which is their biggest natural resource. We controlled it for about 90 years before they got it back. And, you know, it's an amazing thing. You look behind me, you see all these skyscrapers. Look, in the 90s, when they got control of the Panama Canal, none of those existed. There wasn't a building over 12 stories here in Panama City. So all that you see behind me was created in the last 30 years because they've had full access to the revenue and control of their most precious national resource. So it may be understanding that they have a chip on their shoulder when it comes to foreign governments coming in and controlling a sizable piece of their land. Let's talk about the nature of the protests themselves, because I know a lot of people out there have questions about that and or concerns. By and large, these nationwide protests have been non-violent in nature. They are acts of civil disobedience that are aimed at disrupting the natural flow of business in order to get the attention of the Panamanian government. They are happening nationwide. We're here in Panama City. As a matter of fact, as I'm recording this right now, they have gathered here where they've been gathering daily. That's the Sena Costera, and that's where the Panama sign is. It's a great place for them to gather. They celebrate there all the time. Normally during this period, there would be Independence Day parades going on and everybody be over there having a good time, but on a daily basis, they've been gathering there to start their protests. So the protests are nonviolent, they're Civil Disobedience Act, and they mainly are blocking roadways. That's happening all over the country in different places. Typically, anywhere there's a city, you're going to see protests, but also out in the interior, where, Panama has one major highway. That's the Pan American Highway, Route 1, which actually goes all the way up to Alaska, folks. But that's how they move about the country. And these protests have been blocking road passages. So it is difficult to move from one part of the country to another part of the country at this point in time. And not just for people. It's also difficult for goods and services to move. So the nationwide protests have, for the most part, have been extremely nonviolent and a little bit more like partying. Y'all, look, they party at the drop of a dime. So here in the city at Avenue Balboa, what we've been witnessing during the daytime is singing, marching, bands, drummers, Panamanians, and other people in the buildings will show their solidarity by clanging kitchen utensils together and pots and pans and all that good stuff. They may block one lane of traffic or one direction of traffic and the other one's flowing freely. Like right now, the eastbound lanes are shut down because they're at the sign. But you can still flow westbound. You probably can hear the street traffic as I'm talking. There's ways to still move about the city and everything. It's not a complete shutdown, but it is disruptive. For the most part, they've been non-violent. Now at night, there have been small groups of agitators, using that word I've learned in the U.S., that get a little rowdy, and the police come and they want to clear this area because this is a residential area. It's a high-end residential area, and there's a lot of people living here, and it gets noisy. And when they're resistant to leave, the police will use tear gas to vacate the area. The side effect of all of that is that tear gas rises in the air. So even here on the 18th floor, you smell it and your eyes are getting all watery. And those kind of actions have been quick and efficient. Maybe 10, 15 minutes, they come through and sweep, and then they're gone. And now it's quiet. So the nature of the protest, I've been seeing family gatherings, I've been seeing kids, they're bringing their dogs, and everybody seems to be smiling and laughing and sociable with each other, and united in their purpose. I can't understand everything they're saying, but I understand some of it. Just letting the government know how they feel. Nothing like what we've seen in the U.S., especially as recent as the Black Lives Matter protest in D.C., where people were shot with rubber bullets. That's not happening here. In some places, they will set tires on fire in the roadway to announce that they're about to block the roadway. So that can be a little bit disconcerting if you're not used to seeing it. But for the residents of Panama, they just know it's coming. As I said, the protests have been happening nationwide. They're in Bocas, David, Boquete, Coronado area, Patasi, El Valle. No matter where you go in Panama, you're going to face some of it. Colón, can't forget about the Caribbean coast of Colón. In Colón, they actually had a maritime protest. They had some boats that blocked access to one of the ports that the mining company would use. I am a little jealous of the Panamanian people and how they show so much solidarity for each other and are ready to stand up and let their voices be heard. I understand, I definitely empathize and sympathize with the Panamanian people. I love the fact that they show solidarity. It's not just the teachers, it's not just the artisans, it's not just the dock workers, it's everyone. They've shut down schools during this time period because no one can get anywhere. The Panamanian people are taking a hit by doing this. It is difficult for goods and supplies to flow through the country right now. So we're in the city, we get all of the goods and supplies coming through the ports, like the medicine and tools. That can't reach the other side of the country because of the roadways being blocked. The breadbasket of Panama is on the east side of the country. What we're seeing now is a degradation in the availability of leafy green vegetables. The broccoli and the lettuce is disappearing. There's give and take on both ends of this and how it's affecting people. Let me talk a little bit about that. How do the protests affect us as expats living here? For the most part, if we're in Panama City, you're good to go. It's just some traffic disruptions. A few of the businesses that expats depend on for day-to-day existence may be shut down. But if you're a tourist, life is lovely. The restaurants are open, museums are open, Costco Viejo is open. I just had a tour client here this week who extended his stay for an extra day because he was having such a good time. It's definitely possible to still be here and enjoy yourself. You just have to make sure you're packing some patience, and because things are going to change. There are going to be some things you're going to miss out on. For instance, another group of clients were in town this week, and they had made reservations for the Hop-On sightseeing double-decker bus. And the bus people canceled for whatever reason. Maybe their people couldn't get to the city to work the jobs, because a lot of people that work in Panama City live out in the interior. They have to commute into the city. That will happen. But as far as feeling unsafe, we haven't felt unsafe at all. Like I said, people are cheering and dancing in the protest, and we're dancing too. It's infectious. The only negative thing that I felt was that when they were clearing distributed tear gas, but knowing that wasn't directed to me makes all the difference. And the roadblocks and the protest. When I say roadblocks, the police set up their own roadblocks in addition to what the protesters are doing, because I'm guessing the police think this is a really good time to do ID checks and everything since all the Panamanians are out. That gets a little frustrating, but as an American, I have to be patient because this is their thing. This is their issue, and they need the space in order to address it. So my job as an expat is to give them that space and to be understanding and to not complain about, creature comfort things that I may be going without. My Uber Eats may take an extra 5 minutes to get here, and now because, once again, my role here is practice patience and be as supportive of our host as possible. And that's it. One of the things that you do need to be mindful of, though, as an expat living here and going through the residency process, is how much you can say or do when things like this happen. We've been here 2 years. This is the second time that we've been through nationwide protests. About a year ago, the Panamanians were protesting. High medical bills, stagnant wages, high gas prices. Stop me if any of this sounds familiar. They had 5 or 6 weeks of nationwide protests then. Same kind of thing. It was disruptive of the traffic. It was mainly peaceful protest. And then after 5 or 6 weeks, the government relented. They gave them more money in their wages. They have something called a food basket, which refers to the grocery shopping that a normal family can do in a month. They increased the amount of food in that food basket, and they subsidized the gas prices. Look, that was the most shocking thing to me. Panama gets 90% of its gasoline already refined from the United States. So we pay what you pay for gas prices, but the gas prices here were still cheaper because the government was using some of that canal money to make the citizens happy who had been protesting and decided to give them something a little back. Go figure. I told you guys, I'm a little jealous. They actually get things done here. Imagine that. But going back to the point about being careful, so as you're on the path of being an expat, moving into being a resident and having your visa, just be mindful that there are some things that you're not entitled to do or say. It's really not a good idea to get involved in the protest. The Panamanian government does frown upon criticism of its government by non-citizens. Their constitution protects them, and they protect people who are residents. So if you finish your visa process, you're good. But if you're just visiting or you're going through the process, stay away, don't wave any flags, don't criticize, and it's easier said than done because expats, we all network with each other. We have Facebook groups, we have WhatsApp chat groups, and all these groups are lighting up right now because, people are frustrated. People are going through the same exact conversations you would expect to hear in the United States if it was Black Lives Matter protesting. There were people mad about the roads being blocked, and why are we doing this, and why can't we just have business? Y'all know the whole story. I don't have to go into it. Suffice it to say, be on your P's and Q's about engaging in those kinds of conversations. Number one, they're not productive, but just be on your P's and Q's about that kind of thing until you get your credentials. All right, so when are the protests? Typically, what we've been seeing is if you want to move about in the early mornings, you're good to go. Get up till around lunchtime, you're going to have pretty much freedom of movement. Starting around lunchtime, there's going to be roving protests. You may see a group of 50 people walking down this street, so you have to go around another way from that street, or like what just happened here. That same group of 50 just marched this way down the street and then came back to meet at the sign. And I only see like 5 or 6 people there. Go figure. Then at nighttime, the crowds grow because people get off of work. So around 4, the throng grows and grows and grows. And then at some point, we decide to march down the street. And that's one of the things that's a little maddening about this, because once they're moving, you really don't know where they're going. You don't know if it's safe for you to go to, get something to eat in this part of town, because the way you may go, you may get trapped. So they're roving, and they're roving through main commuter corridors. They're serving a purpose. As a matter of fact, they've even threatened to slow down the access to or from the airport. Now, that doesn't mean the airport's going to be closed. It just means you may have to wait in traffic leaving the airport. We had some guests that came in, and their hotel advised them to take the 7 a.m. shuttle for the 3 p.m. flight, and really didn't give them a choice. And they were a little bit out of shape about that. So that's what I'm saying. Practice your patience. In that situation, the hotel people know better than the tourists. So they're looking out for your safety and trying to make sure you can get on your flight and return to your family. Give them the space to do that. Practice. All right, so when did the protests end? Good question. I have no idea. The president has made a couple of speeches. They have made some concessions. For instance, the first concession they made was to increase the amount of pension, monthly pension paid to their retirees. So the reaction to that wasn't stellar. The Panamanian people were like, you can't buy us off. We understand what you're doing. And then a week ago, I believe he said, okay, I heard you. We're going to let the people vote on this. And he called for an election to happen sometime in December. Now, other parts of the government are looking at the legality of that, because apparently in their constitution, they are not allowed to hold any referendums or votes on new things within a 6-month period before a presidential election. And they have a presidential election in May of 24. So the court system is like, wait a minute, we don't even know if this referendum that you call for is legal. So there's some back and forth with that. It's an ongoing fluid situation. So the best guess I can say is, I don't know how long this is going to last. So the follow-up question to how long it's going to last that I'm getting from my customers is, should I visit Panama right now? Let me add my disclaimer that what I'm about to say is purely my opinion. I am not instructing you, begging you, pleading with you, cajoling you, convincing you of anything. I'm sharing what I would do. So please, please, please don't try to hold Big Will responsible for a decision that you have to make. If it were me coming to visit, knowing what I know, as long as I were planning on staying in and around Panama City itself, I would go ahead and visit, because you can get around the city. Things are open in the city, like I said. The tourist spots are banging. The restaurants are still selling whole red snapper and lobsters and all of that good stuff. If your trip involves you seeing any part of the interior, you're going to go visit Cologne, you're going to hit Coronado, you want to go to El Valle, Boquete, David, David's a special one. Anything that's going to involve you having to ride a bus or a car through the country, not advisable at this point in time. You can get stuck 8 to 10 hours, easy. David and Bocas, they both have airports. So it is possible to fly from Panama City to David or to Bocas del Toro. There was a protest that was able to slow down traffic to the David airport last week. You just couldn't leave the airport or get to the airport. So yeah, some people missed their flights. Just keep that kind of stuff in mind and exercise good judgment. We're visiting Panama anytime in the next month or so. If you are relocating to Panama, do not let this slow you down. The protests here are nothing like what you've seen in the United States. No one is storming capitals here. They'll probably be over in a couple of weeks. It's really nothing scary. There's nothing to be afraid of. And you are moving to a different country. Things are going to happen, and you need to be flexible in order to be able to survive. So I'm going to leave it at that and wrap this up. Once again, my name is Big Will. Thank you so much for joining us today on this special episode discussing the mining protest here in Panama. If this is your first time joining us, I really hope that you found some value. Please do us the favor of liking and subscribing so that you can continue to help us grow and reach other people. It's been a pleasure today spending some time with you, and I look forward to doing it again on the next video. All right, fam? Ciao.